take it to court.
Wrong precedent.
Whatever it is, it can be cited.
Good. Now,
the federal government,
we will not exalt lawlessness.
No. The federal government, if they feel that an allocation is a danger because of the person there, that the person there can use it for certain things. For example, if the federal government can prove that, look, they feel that this state is involved in terrorism, or money is being squandered,
can we talk about the local government?
Projects. Okay. So what we are saying is the federal government and coming to the House of Rep, our Red Chamber brothers and co, they may now need to meet if state governors remain adamant to say, look, the next plan is this. Let us start to pay directly to local government. Like you said, these people have gone out to have personal accounts. They are waiting. Now, you will notice that it was not the local government chairmen who were supposed to come out and, protest. It was their staff.
How can they protest when they are handpicked?
Because of loyalty. Okay. Some of them are not just handpicked. Some of them are actually handpicked by the people, because I know the local government in my area, it was the people who said, we like this person has fought for us, this person has done ABC, let him go forward and
which state is it?
In Lagos here.
Like seriously?
Yes.
Okay.
So there are some places like that.
Okay, Swift, let me now ask you, why is the federal government not paying directly to the state? And why have we been holding this precedent all this while and paying to state to pay to local government?
Because that's the constitutional structure of things. I think there's a state joint account where, because at the end of the day, the local government is just the local government. And
when you say the local government is just
local government because they function within the structure of the states.
Okay.
So, and that's why the constitution has...
And they are the ones that are closer to the people.
Yeah.
And the most important to the people.
And then we're looking at it because the law allows for checks and balance. And then the federal government sends it to a constitutional body, the states, and then the states remits to the so now, withholding it is, in practice, that's the problem. The states would withhold and then try to do scrutiny around the local government. That's what local government.
Are they doing scrutiny?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
So let me.
Are you sure they are doing?
Sorry, let me jump in because it's exactly what you said. But I want to say this. According to Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution, it states that all allocations from the federal government has to be paid to the state government local joint account, and they now disburse. That's what he's saying.
Okay. Now let's ask ourselves these direct questions. Things where everybody's running away from, even Swift. Thanks to the word called loyalty.
Constitution.
No, I'm not talking about
this. This is constitution.
I'm talking about the loyalty, where the local government now has to be at the mercy of the states. Do you see
it's bad practice?
Do you see this working?
Yes.
When the state governors are the lord and mayor of who becomes the local government chairman?
That's why I said in practice it's difficult because there's a heavy political side to how the loyalty like just mentioned. But let's for once let's just stay on the constitutional legal framework. It will work.
And you are not comfortable with it.
Most times it's a practice that is the issue, because of the political structure of how the country is. Everyone tilts towards I'm loyal to you, sir.
Okay.
And all of that. But like we rightly mentioned earlier, the Supreme Court, as the ruling is clear,
I've said
it's not for interpretations.
Okay. We have just 2 minutes to run away from the studio.
Yes.
Okay, now Swift, let's now come back to you.
I don't want to run away.
On loyalty and allegiance.
Yes.
Do you see this working?
So I do not see anything like loyalty and allegiance. We saw during the last elections, we saw the president lose in his own state.
I'm talking about local government,
wait now.
state government.
We saw people who the president had handpicked, had fed, turn against him. We saw that. So we are inside local government politics. We saw all this happen. And so, because somebody else came and took down Lagos, which is his stronghold. Yeah. And so, what does that show? It shows that when you empower anybody, they can turn away from you. So if the monies are empowered to local government chairmen, if they want to do right, they will do right. Especially now, like I said, their immunity, they don't have immunity. So if you don't build those roads, you can be arrested. So if your godfather says that is the governor, bring 20%, and you know that 20% can get you jailed and your assets taken. Guess what would happen? They won't. And that is why governors are afraid. This extra pepper soup money from local government is going to be taken away from them.
Point of correction. Those are not pepper soup money.
And pepper
We are talking about billions of...
Oh, they call it pepper soup money.
Like, seriously?
Because that's what you use to take the bills out.
You know who to come. I know her address. And I can directly take you there. Going forward, what do you think the president should go? Because he is he believes that this money should stop, the status quo should stop. We should deliver local government money to local government money. States, take care of yourself.
Just encourage the let's all uphold the law. There's a reason why they went to Supreme Court. Okay. You know, because there's a reason why we have the judicial system. There's a dispute, there's a back and forth. Okay, let's go to a third party, someone that sees it from the scope of let's find a common ground. And if there's a common ground, let's leave the interpretation. Okay. The interpretation has been done already by the Supreme Court. So let's
just implement and enforce. Okay. We want to say thank you very much for being part of SB on this beautiful Tuesday. Remember, we say when it comes to business, when it comes to economy, and when it comes to finance, when it comes to money, SOUQ Television is your plug. And we believe that Nigeria will grow and grow faster when the local economies are empowered. And it's the local government, it's the councils. That is where I live, that is where you live. You don't wake up tomorrow morning and call the president or your governor, but you can walk to your chairman or your council's house. So we want to see things change. And just like the president is saying, send local government monies to local government. Dear state governors, we from this table, we are appealing to you. If you want loyalty, breed it. Not by holding the local government and local government chairman and personnel to the jugular. I want to say thank you very much. Remember, this is December, is the month of giving. Share something. Reach out to somebody. Say hi. When you see someone just smiling and having a frown, try probe and know if the person is okay. And also reach out and let's also hear from you. Thank you very much. My name is SOUQ, John Rogers SOUQ. We'll do this again tomorrow. Swift.
All right, Winston Churchill will say, do not ask what your government can do for you, but ask yourself what you can do for the government. This Christmas, I change it. Ask everybody what they can do for you. Get that money, get that alert. Merry Christmas in advance and Happy New Year. My name is Swift, and have a good day.
Thank you for joining SBL today. Just like Swift, quoted a great man. I will quote a great man as well. Dr. Daosa would say there's a pressure triangle. This period, try to stay away from pressure so it doesn't lead you to doing what you're not supposed to do. Merry Christmas once again from me.
Take
Nigeria because it's the mind that needs to first of all be rebranded.
Idris said he's going to be putting Nigerian labor, Nigeria content and materials first.
If you say Nigeria first and it is just us down here that are pushing that agenda, it's going to be a big struggle.
Do you think Nigerian firms, Nigerian organizations should start looking at getting their staff involved in this market or buying to keep for their stuff? Within this side, let's also learn citizen diplomacy. See something. This is SOUQ business landscape.
Growing interest in Nigeria's lithium reserves comes as countries worldwide scramble to secure supplies of the mineral which is essential for powering the green energy revolution. In this special report by Bayo Olaoye, the need to harness this resource for growth and development is examined with the evolution of electric vehicles and renewable energy storage systems. Lithium is a key component in the production of batteries for electric vehicles and renewable energy storage systems, and Nigeria is positioning itself to become a major player in the global lithium market. Nigeria's vast lithium reserves, valued over $34 billion, is no doubt attracting world attention, while lithium factories are springing up in different parts of Nigeria already. The attention of the international mining industry is also focused on lithium because it is critical raw material for the production of solar panels and electric vehicles. Analysts predict that global lithium market could grow robustly over the next decade, driven by the rapid adoption of electric vehicles and renewable energy technologies. Data from a global future market insight showed that the lithium mining industry has emerged as a cornerstone of the clean energy transition, driven by the skyrocketing demand for lithium-ion batteries. The surge in lithium demand is driven largely by the electric vehicles market, which accounted for over 70% of the global lithium consumption in 2024, according to an Iranian-based research firm. With countries such as the United States, China, and members of the European Union pushing for next zero emission by mid-century, lithium demand is expected to escalate further. The federal government, indeed, the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, should intensify efforts geared at renewing and resuscitating the viable lithium industry in the country to its full potential. As Nigeria diversifies its economy into other sectors, the lithium industry offers hope and expectation that this sector would earn more revenue for the country. Nigeria should not just watch with folded arms, but must strive with the political will to develop and strengthen the country's vast lithium reserves.
The Trump administration has once again thrust U.S. immigration policy into the global spotlight with the recent announcement of a new voluntary self-deportation program that offers a $1,000 stipend to undocumented immigrants who agree to leave the country on their own. This incentive-based strategy is a calculated shift from the traditional, more aggressive deportation measures and is already stirring debate among policymakers, immigration advocates, and the public alike. The program, introduced in early May 2025, is being implemented by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It allows undocumented migrants to register for voluntary departure using the CBP-1 app, after which they will receive a government-funded flight and a $1,000 stipend upon confirmation of their exit. Homeland Security officials argue that this move is designed to save taxpayers significant amounts of money. According to data provided by the DHS, a forced deportation process costs the government an average of $17,121 per individual. In contrast, the stipend program is seen as a cost-effective alternative that also reduces the strain on overcrowded detention centers and court dockets. This new measure is a part of a broader, intensified effort by the Trump administration to curb illegal immigration and tighten control over the U.S. southern border. Since returning to power, President Trump has reinstated several policies from his first term, while introducing new ones aimed at deterring undocumented migrants. Deportation numbers have surged, with nearly 66,000 individuals removed from the U.S. within the first 100 days of his new term. Family detention centers, once heavily criticized for their impact on children, have been brought back into operation, while legal aid for unaccompanied minors have seen severe cuts. These developments come at a time when the United States is experiencing a historic high in its foreign-born population. As of 2023, nearly 47.8 million immigrants were residing in the U.S., with an estimated 11 million of them undocumented. Many of these individuals have lived in the country for over a decade, raising families and contributing to the economy. Immigrants, regardless of status, are a vital part of the U.S. labor force, contributing billions in taxes and significantly shaping industries such as agriculture, construction, and caregiving. Critics of the $1,000 self-deportation offer argue that the program may oversimplify the complex reasons behind undocumented migration. Many of those targeted by the program have deep roots in the U.S., including U.S.-born children, community ties, and long-term employment. Human rights organizations warn that such policies, while less aggressive on the surface, may pressure vulnerable individuals into making life-altering decisions without legal representation or full knowledge of their rights. There are also concerns about the ethical implications of offering monetary incentives for departure, particularly in cases involving asylum seekers or those fleeing violence. From a strategic standpoint, the administration insists that this approach is a practical way to reduce the migrant population without resorting to mass raids or extended detentions. Supporters say it offers dignity and a choice to undocumented migrants while protecting national interests. However, immigration experts question the actual effectiveness of the program, noting that similar efforts in the past have yielded limited results. The offer of $1,000 may not be enough to motivate individuals who have risked everything to seek better lives in the United States. The debate around this policy underscores the broader tensions within American immigration discourse, balancing border control and national sovereignty among humanitarian obligations and economic realities. With the 2026 midterm elections approaching, immigration remains one of the most polarizing and politically charged issues on the national agenda. In the wider global context, policies like this could set a precedent as other countries monitor the US approach, especially those in Europe and parts of Africa facing rising migration numbers. Questions around voluntary migration, incentives, and state-led deportation policies are likely to spark wider international debates. What remains clear is that the Trump administration's latest move is not just a domestic policy. It is a bold, controversial experiment in reshaping the global migration conversation. I am Moyosore Adibi for SOUQ News TV.
SOUQ Atlantic has become Nigeria's most sought-after city for its SOUQ Atlantic has become Nigeria's most sought-after city for its high-end infrastructure, prestige, and well-planned city layout, as reflected in an 8-lane boulevard, about 13 internal bridges, underground cables, and green footprints defined by over 30,000 trees. Additionally, having a building in the city has become a trend among the so-called big boys, as was the case with Old Ikoyi, Victoria Garden City, popularly called VGC, Osborne Foreshore, and now Banana Island. In this special report, Bayo Olaoye states that this talk of I belong and the prestige mentality has also spread to the big firms. Before now, Kingsway and Ozumba Mbadi were used to say that Victoria Island were the go-to locations for high-rise office buildings. These locations are home home to iconic developments such as Kingsway Towers, Heritage Palace, Fanfare Towers, the Wings and the Waves, among others, making them Nigeria's equivalent of Silicon Valley. The Eco-Atlantic City was modeled after the skyscraper district of Manhattan Island in New York City. It has become the new destination for big-ticket corporate firms which are building or relocating their new headquarters to the 10-square-kilometer city, rising off the coast of the Atlantic Ocean in Lagos. The city is attracting investment interests in both residential and commercial real estate, the latest being MTN Nigeria, preparing to build a new headquarters. MTN is coming on the heels of First Bank, which recently turned the turf to build a 40-floor corporate head office, making the city's most iconic development so far. Prior to this courageous and ambitious entry into Eco City by MTN, First Bank, Dangote Group, and the Embassy of the United States of America have taken positions there, developing a new head office and a diplomatic facility respectively. Much earlier, a co-development company had occupied the city as the developer of the Azuri Towers, offering both residential and commercial facilities for high clients and corporate bodies. Arkland Property Investment and Oak Homes are also in the city, developing A&A Towers simultaneously. These are the residential developments that will be standing on the 22nd floor and the 33rd floors respectively. Other developments are the Pan-African Towers by Periwinkle Residences, Eco Pearl with Champagne Tower and Eco Pearl Black Tower, Amni Towers and Ani International Petroleum Development Company, and Louisville Towers by Total Energy Staff Cooperative and Multipurpose Society. Louisville will comprise 300 residential homes spread between 2 towers, a world-class sporting center and a club, retail outlets and other facilities. It is designed to employ modern technology to achieve smart living and high standards. Eco-Atlantic is an exclusive luxury city with superior infrastructure that appeals to the kind of investors we have seen in the city so far.
My name is Shino Ogbadegeshin. I'm the CEO of Gozi Micro Insurance. Continue to watch SOUQ News.
Adenike Adeyemi, Executive Director of Faith Foundation. Keep watching SOUQ News.
My name is Shepherd Michael Adewale Onofuye. I enjoy you all to always watch SOUQ News TV.
Hey everyone, Majuli Obaje here representing Gigi. Keep watching SOUQ News, okay? Stay updated with SOUQ News.
My name is Aton Kene. I am the head of MSME Banking. Please keep watching SOUQ News and stay glued to SOUQ News.
I recommend that more and more people should watch SOUQ News because they deal with business news.
Hi, my name is Amaka Wokolo. I am the director of the Faith Institute at Faith Foundation. Keep watching SOUQ News.
A very warm welcome to you on the program where we'll bring you different migration-related stories from diverse aspects. This is Across Borders on SOUQ News Television, and I am Grace Komolafe. It's few days to Christmas, and I am wishing you a happy one in advance. On today's episode, we want to explore migration, not just as movement across borders, but as lived experience shaped by safety, dignity, policy, and human choice. This conversation will focus on an often overlooked side of migration discourse, and that is how migration is reported and the responsibility that comes with telling these stories. From borders and transit routes to camps, cities, and return journeys, journalists play a powerful role in shaping how migration is understood. But with that power comes serious ethical questions. How do we report migration without putting lives at risk? How do we balance public interest with human dignity? And how do journalists protect themselves while working in complex and often dangerous environments? And so we will be speaking on the topic safety and ethics, reporting migration and border realities. To guide this conversation, we are joined by a journalist, Anibe Idajili. Anibe's work engages directly with migration, borders, and human stories. She will be starting this conversation in a bit, just after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In case you are just joining us, this is Across Borders, where we talk about migration and every other thing related to it. Today is about the safety and ethics of reporting migration and the border realities. And we have a journalist reporting in this field to take us through the journey. A very good morning to you, Anibe Idajili. Good morning.
Good morning, Grace. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so honored. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So glad to have you join us too. We are glad. All right, so without taking much of our time, let's just get started. And let's begin with safety. So I want to ask you, when journalists report migration stories, especially those involving irregular routes or vulnerable people, what kind of risks can reporting unintentionally create for migrants or their sources?
Okay, as journalists, first we must understand that every story that we tell carries a footprint, right? And so when we publish the names, the locations, or GPS photos of our sources, we may unintentionally hand over a map to traffickers, to government authorities, to even hostile communities. Now, for instance, let me give you an example. If you're telling a story of a migrant family, for instance, that has, suffered a failed migration attempt. Now, you might open them to targets, from, some, nefarious people where they become targets for extortion, for attacks. So, when we tell migration stories, we have to be careful as journalists. Safety should be our first editorial consideration, right? Some of the steps we can take as journalists when telling migration stories are: one, we should anonymize data where necessary, right? We can blur the faces of our sources. We can replace, actual names with pseudonyms. Secondly, we should secure storage, right? I think this is something that most journalists do not do. Like, we need to learn how to encrypt, recordings and notes from our interviews. It's something we should learn how to do. How to save, data on cloud services. Then thirdly, we also need to have what I call a risk assessment checklist. We should be able to ask questions as journalists. If this information leaks, what happens to the migrants? What happens to the journalists, right? Because for us journalists, self-preservation should be the key word, right? We are protecting our sources, we are protecting ourselves. And, like I said before, safety should be the first thing, the first editorial consideration as journalists, because we need to protect our sources. Otherwise, how do they tell these stories? How do they tell these stories that need to be heard, right? So, yeah, so for me, I think safety should be our watchword as journalists.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I like the fact that you've hammered on safety as it to be the first thing to consider. While you have talked about safety as a first thing to consider, you also mentioned being able to, use, I think I'm going to talk about technology. I'll just push that to technology, being able to save stuffs to, clouds and other platforms. How well would you say that journalists are being fine-tuned and following the current trend of being engaging into this reality when it comes to technology?
Okay, as someone who has worked in legacy media organizations and also digital media organizations, I would say that the uptake of the use of technology in journalism is very low. I would say that because for me, what has helped me is, getting trained and getting retrained. I've paid for courses myself to learn how to secure myself. I've paid for, workshops, even seminars, on how to safeguard myself, both physically, technology-wise, as a journalist. And I think that it's something that, the owners of media organizations, the founders of media organizations should look into, because when you look at most journalists, they do not know how to really secure themselves, especially those who report conflict and migration stories. So I think the uptake is really low, and there should be more training on the use of technology. And also, we cannot blame journalists so much because of the way things are in Nigeria. So, you get journalists working in traditional media organizations where even electricity is a challenge, without electricity, of course, that internet access, it becomes an issue. So I think there are a lot of issues interwoven in this, but I think that the main thing is for founders and owners of media organizations to train and retrain their employees on the use of technology in journalism.
That's very key. I like the fact that you hit the nail on its head. Training is very important because the knowledge you don't have, you can't give it. It is what you have that will guide you and that will help you to deliver well. So I see some people concentrate more on powerful story. You've talked about safety, while that should come first. But again, some look at powerful story first. I want to ask you, from your experience, why should safety take priority over getting a powerful story? Or you think powerful story should be the priority?
Yeah. Okay, so I think for most journalists like myself, okay, that's where ethical reporting skills come into play. Now, so there's a dilemma between sensationalizing a story and humanizing it. So for us in this part of the world, you want people to read your stories. You want it to be out there, and so you see headlines that are click-worthy, right? You hear of 5,000 migrants move into a city or move into a country, and what this does is it makes the viewers and or the audience view these migrants as threats, not as real people, right? And so I think what journalists who cover migration stories should do is, try to humanize the numbers, right? Try to humanize the numbers. For instance, if I do a story on a migrant woman, for instance, who is running a small business in a host community or a host country, what I've done in that case is, let people see her struggle, see her, her success, see her as a real person, not as a threat, not as a burden, to the host community, but as a real person who is contributing something, to the society. And so we need to be careful in balancing this, because I always say that journalism is a covenant with the truth, right? It's a covenant with the truth. We must tell all sides, And then, for me personally, the ethical pillars that guide my work is, number one, accuracy, right? I'll just make sure that I check every claim, even for sources that are vulnerable, especially for sources that are vulnerable. right? And then also, I try to look at, ask myself questions like, if, I publish this story, would it be respectful to the migrants, right? So instead of looking at, how powerful the story is, and all of that, we should look at the impact, the real impact on the subjects of our stories, right? The subjects of our stories, and not just how viral we want the story to go. What impact would it have on them? Would it help the migrants, or would it perpetuate an anti-immigrant sentiment, in the minds of, our viewers and audience? So it's very important that we balance these things.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I like the fact that you've taken me to the next question, and we has to do with ethics. So, looking at ethics in storytelling, you agree with me that migration stories often carry emotional weight, you understand? So as a journalist, how do you balance telling the truth with being mindful of the consequences? I mean, a report may have, you want to look at the impact the report will have on the individual that is involved.
Okay, yeah. So this question is like a follow-up to what I just said earlier.
Yes.
We have to check every claim, right? Every claim. Even if the source is vulnerable, even if the migrant is vulnerable, because of course we know that most of the stories to tell about migrants, most of them are life-threatening stories, life-threatening experiences that they've had. Okay, so we need to check claims, right? So we don't get too emotional with the facts. We need to be able to combine emotions with facts. So we need to fact check with multiple sources, including NGOs, legal experts, and other migrants themselves. It's very key that we fact check every claim so we don't get carried away with emotions. And then we also need to look at the consequences, of the stories that we tell. How is it going to impact the migrant? All right? What perception is going to perpetuate stereotypes about migrants? Is it going to help them in any way? Right? We have to be careful how we tell these stories. And so it just balancing, there should be a balance. There should be a balance, when we write these stories about migrants. There should be a balance, right? So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. I get it. So apparently you are saying that it's okay to understand that this is basically for informing the public and not taking advantage of those that are vulnerable, those that are involved. So you just do it ethically. That's fine. Let's talk about language. So language matters deeply in migration reporting. I know, and even in every aspect, we're in this together. So how does the choice of words, headlines, and framing, how does it influence public perception of migrants?
Yeah. As journalists, we need to audit the kind of words we use for our stories, right? We need to, I see some kind of headlines sometimes and I'm like, wow, right? So we need to edit the kind of language we use for our stories. Not just the headline, the whole story, it should not dehumanize the migrants, right? It should not dehumanize them. It should not reduce them to victims, right? So that's what most people do sometimes. Like of course, this person is moving from a particular location to another location because of conflict or because of one issue or the other, but it doesn't make them victims, right? So we have to watch the kind of words we use when describing, or talking about migrants. And especially the headlines. Most people want to make their headlines click-worthy. Like you see the headline, like 3,000 people move from social community to social community. And like I said before, we have to be careful because the host community, there's a likelihood that they see these people as, coming to take their jobs, coming to take their economic opportunities and all of that. So, but when we present migrants as contributors to the society, as people who are bringing their own quota to better the society, we're able to, create, a sense of, community, all right? And we don't create that sense like, oh, these people are threats. They're coming for, they're coming for us. They're coming to take, what belongs to us and all of that. So language framing really matters, when telling migration stories. Unlike other kind of stories, the stories we tell, migration stories we tell, can lead to even more conflict, right? It can lead to more conflict. So we have to be very careful, when we tell these stories and audit the kind of language we use when, doing migration stories.
Thank you. I think I'm just going to add a bit. I can tell you, we are in this together, like I mentioned earlier. You know that the media does a whole lot when it comes to passing information and how people receive this information, the impact of the information that we push out. We've seen that happen in 1 or 2 countries where someone just go make an announcement on the radio and boom, issues begin to happen everywhere. You understand? So I agree. I think that's a very key part we need to look at. I want to ask, away from headlines, are there other things, 1 or 2 or more, that you know that it's a major mistake that journalists do make and they need to work on, that you like to share?
Oh, okay. In telling migration stories, in relation to the kind of language they use. Oh, okay.
So I am saying that. I am saying that away from language, we've talked about framing, headlines, and all of that. Put together, what are those other areas you feel that, oh, this is not turning well, this is a mistake. Just journalists should know better, that you are aware of, that you want to speak to, so that we can all learn?
Yeah, I think that sometimes as conflict or migration reporters, we must accept too much in the stories. Okay, I'll give you an example. So I did a story on conflict-induced malnutrition, how it affects children. And I visited a community where, these migrants fled to, and I saw the children. Even as a mother, that thing stayed with me for a very long time. Like, I immersed myself so much in that story that it took a while to get over it. So one thing I will tell migration reporters is, you have to take self-preservation seriously, as a migration reporter. Like, fine, it's okay to immerse yourself in the story, but you should do it in such a way that you're able to, move away from the story when you need to do that. And that's one. Then secondly, I'm going to talk, I don't know if you're going to talk about that later, I'm going to talk about informed consent. Now, for people who have suffered traumatic experiences, it's very key that you get the
next question I want to ask you, and you are just getting right into it. That's the next question I want to ask you. Yes, about consent and power of imbalance. Probably just speak to that. Consent and power of imbalance. Yes, speak to it.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I see informed consent as more than just, giving someone a paper to sign, right? They have to understand what the story is about. They need to understand where it will be published, who might see it. You understand? And if at any point during the interview, they decide, oh, I don't want to go on with this, give them that option to leave. Give them that option to walk away, right? So it's very important that they understand. And then we should also be able to speak the language that they understand. If, for instance, I'm going to a community where they speak Hausa, for instance, and I do not understand Hausa, I should get a translator or an interpreter, right? So it's important that they understand the kind of questions you're asking them, the implications and everything. I know you want to get the story. It might be a hot story, a breaking story, you want to get it, but make sure as a journalist to get informed consent. And informed consent goes beyond giving them a paper to form to sign. They should understand what the implications are, what the story is about, who would see it, and what that would mean for them. And then we should also give them the option to walk away if they feel like it's too uncomfortable for them or too dangerous for them, right? So I think these things are key. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you're very correct, because I know we've had 1 or 2 situations where we met with some of the migrants and wanted to have a platform like this, but it wasn't comfortable for them, and we just have to respect that. That is very important.
Yeah.
So consent goes a long way. Let's take a short break at this point. Please, the conversation continues, but we need to go on a break. When we come back, we'll take it from where we stopped. Please stay with us.
Across Africa, movement has always defined life. From the ancient camel caravans that crossed the Sahara to the aircraft that now fill the skies. Migration has always been the heartbeat of connection, resilience, and transformation. The same purpose that once drove traders across deserts now guides planes across continents, linking people, commerce, and dreams. Centuries ago, caravans carried salt, gold, and ideas from the empires of Mali and Songhai to the Swahili coast. These routes were Africa's first highways paths of trade and culture that built civilizations long before modern borders. Traders were more than merchants. They were bridges between worlds. Today's aviation routes are faster, but they follow the same spirit, the desire to connect. Then came colonization, which reshaped Africans' movements. Borders were drawn, people displaced, and millions forced into labor. What migration once united, colonization divided. Yet, today's aviation is helping to reconnect what history once tore apart, linking cities, nations, and families through the skies. After independence, movement took new forms from rural to urban migration, students seeking knowledge abroad to refugees fleeing conflicts. Africa's people still move, not from weakness, but from hope, because mobility is survival. From the caravans to aircrafts, Africans' journey has always been one of motion and meaning. The skies that once watched history now carries new dreams. I am Alice Patrick. You're watching Across Borders. Stay tuned for more insights.
Welcome back, and you're still watching Across Borders, where we talk about migration-related issues. And we have been having a conversation with a reporter, a journalist, yes, who is working around migration and border-related issues. And she remains Anibe Idajili. So, Anibe, let's just get into the conversation again. So we've talked about the migrants, we've talked about ethics and some other things. So let's talk about journalists. Let's talk about journalists. So when it comes to border and field reporting, what are the risks that are attached to it? Now, I want to take this now. Reporting from borders, camps, or transit routes. Definitely, this comes with its own challenges. Can you speak to the physical and emotional risks journalists face in this environment?
Right. Thank you very much. Working in border zones is almost like walking on a tightrope. I'll tell you that. Yeah, and that's because there's a risk of you being arrested as a spy agent, as a spy. You can be arrested for being a propaganda agent by the government. There's also the physical threat of, being attacked by a party or some parties to the conflict, right? We've heard of stories where, the accreditation of journalists have been blocked. Some media organizations have had their licenses withdrawn because of certain stories that were told by their employees and all of that. For me, I've not really suffered a physical threat. Yeah, I've witnessed colleagues, suffer that. I've heard of colleagues who have suffered that. But for me, I think what I have experienced is emotional trauma. People don't talk about it a lot, but there's something called secondary PTSD. Like I was telling you about the story I did on conflict-induced malnutrition, when I covered, migrant families whose children were suffering severe malnutrition. That stayed with me for a very long time. It took, counseling, it took talking to family members and friends to get over it, because some of the pictures, some of the images that I saw, physical images that I saw, were really, really gory. So those are some of the risks that we face as journalists that cover migration stories. You get to suffer physical attacks, emotional attacks, and even professional attacks as a result of the stories that we tell. So it's a lot of risks that we face as migration reporters.
So I want to ask you, how do you prepare yourself professionally and personally before entering into such environment? How do you get yourself?
For me, I work a lot with fixers, local fixers. These people know the terrain, they know where, it's a bit safe to go to and all of that. So, and also one thing I always tell myself is no story is worth my life, right? If it's too dangerous to go, I do not go at all. I do not go at all. And then also, because I work with organizations, I try to get the necessary permissions to go to a particular location. I don't just walk into a place and start asking questions, and all of that. I also try to build relationships with the communities that I go to beforehand, with my sources. That way I'm able to build trust. So they don't see me as a threat. They don't see me as someone coming to, ask questions that I'm not supposed to ask, and all of that. So those are the kind of things I prepare myself, how I prepare myself ahead of, covering these stories. And then, like I also said, I have, a counselor that I also talk to, because most of these stories are life-threatening stories. And so I have a counselor that I talk to before I go to the field and when I get back. Then I also talk to family members. No, not giving them details of the story, but how I feel, the emotional toll that these stories have on me. So that way it prepares me ahead, of going to the field. Yeah.
Okay. I think that part is very important as well. So a whole lot of journalists probably they just go do their job, and that's it. I think seeing a counselor, meeting someone to talk to help you, get ready mentally and all that is very important. And I would like that as many as possible, let's have journalists begin to, imbibe this culture, because it's going to go a long way helping. You mentioned something, you talked about walking away, and I like the fact that you mentioned it, you kind of personalize it, that no story was your life. And I think that is applicable to every journalist out there. But again, I want to ask, how are we going to say that journalists, okay, let me put it in this manner. Journalists and soldiers, the soldiers, they obey the last command. Are you saying that journalists, you are open to walking away regardless of who is pushing the assignment and the targets, the information you need to get? You understand what I mean? All of that put together. Are you saying that you have the liberty to walk away even when you know you need to deliver?
That's a dicey one. Well, I'm saying personally, I go extra length to get, my stories, get the information I need for my story. But I also know when to walk away. Recently there was, this abduction of, a case of abduction of over 300 kids, and I was, I I was around where that thing happened, maybe like, a 3 hour drive to that place. But I thought of, this thing just happened. Why don't I just wait for, a while before going there? And then when you drive to a certain place, you have to take a boat, like a 2 hour boat to the community. So, I felt like at that point, I wasn't supposed to go at that point, and I should wait till, the whole chaos and everything dies down a bit before going. So you can still tell your stories, but also know when to go, how to go about it. If you are supposed to wait, if you are supposed to walk away entirely. These are things that, journalists should discuss with their, organizations, with their, their editors and all of that. So you don't work in isolation. You work, and of course, organizations have their editorial guidelines. So there are rules, set of rules, that each journalist follows. So what I do is I always work with my editor. I don't work in isolation. And if he says go, I know I have the backing of my organization to go, and they would, provide me with, safety tools, right? So it's very important that we weigh all these options. Like I said before, I said as journalists, we should have risk assessment checklists, right? So you should check, is it safe now to go now? Can I go later? Do I have the backing of my organization? All right. Do I have the necessary accreditation permissions to go to, that location? So it's important that we weigh all of these. We have to accept those questions before going. Right.
So I'm just going to look at it from this angle. There's this saying that goes, "Does he that fights a runaway lives to fight another day?"
Lives to fight another day.
Okay. So when you see that the fight is really getting tougher and you can handle it, you should walk away. You should walk away. But
Exactly.
that's not to say that the job should not be done. So I think I understand you trying to balance it. That is very important, balancing the job. You know when to say no, you know when to say yes. Yes, that's very important. Now let's look at media's role, in shaping public attitudes. Media narratives influence how societies respond to migration. In your own view, how can reporting either promote empathy and understanding or fuel fear and misinformation? This question is very important.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that question. It's very key. I think I touched on that a little bit when I was talking earlier. The media is the first, lens, to crisis for most people, right? So something might be happening in certain location and people don't get to hear about it until maybe they tune into a TV station or they listen to a radio or they go to the internet, And so it's their first, contact, to crisis, to conflicts, to migration issues and all of that. And so we have to be careful, how we tell these stories. It's okay to talk about the numbers, but we should humanize the numbers, right? We should not dehumanize people in a bid to tell a story, right? Like I said earlier, if you say 1,000 people move from so location to XYZ location, the first thing that comes to the mind of the host community or the host country is, oh, these people are threats. Oh, they have come for our jobs. They have come for our opportunities, right? So we have to be careful how we frame this. But if I take a single story, a single migrant family story, for instance, and I talk about their setbacks, and I talk about their struggles, as immigrants. I talk about, their successes, their dreams, and all of that. What I have done is humanize them, humanize their experiences. Now people are able to relate to their dreams. They're able to relate to, their experiences. They don't see them anymore as threats. They don't see them as problematic. So framing is very important. It's very important. Framing is very important. The thing is, sometimes we do not recognize the power that we wield as journalists, right? Because like I said, the media is a lens through which most people see crisis. They see migration. They see conflicts. So we have to be careful that even when stating the numbers, we're able to humanize, the people that make up these numbers. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask you, we're trying to wrap up now. When it comes to policy debates, when it comes to policy conversations, where do you see the media? Now you get to see press conferences where the media are being, invited and information are being, set on the table, have conversation and all that. But where do you see the media when we're discussing core migration issues, when we're debating core migration policies? Where is the position or the place of the journalists?
Okay, for me, I think that the focus is mostly on the numbers, especially when it comes to policy making and decision making. So the focus is on the numbers of how many migrants are in social location and all of that for policy making. I think the government isn't focusing so much on their well-being. I know there are migrants in different camps and all of that, and we see different non-profits coming to provide relief materials and all of that. But I don't see those things as sustainable. I don't see those solutions as sustainable. I think the government needs to do more. Beyond the numbers, we should also look at, how we're able to impact, these migrants in the long run, in the long term, right? How we're able to, integrate them back into the society. So you see, people leave their ancestral homes, to different places because of one issue or the other. And they're able to, they are not accepted in their host communities and they cannot go back to where they are from. So there are a lot of issues around this. And I think that's where we come in as journalists. We need to tell the stories. So, and that's why I said earlier that we shouldn't focus on the numbers. The numbers are needed, for policy making and decision making. But to tell impactful stories, we need to humanize these numbers. We need to humanize it, and we need to focus more on the people who are affected. We need to focus more on them. All right, the policies that are being made should be able to affect each person personally and not just vague policies on paper. They should be able to impact lives. There should be tangible impact in the lives of migrants. So I think these are the stories we should tell as journalists. We should look at the policies on and how it affects the migrants. Yeah.
All right, so now as we wrap up, I'd like you to speak to policies that concerns journalists. So are there policies that speak to the protection, the freedom, of the journalists, all put together? Because either you like it or yes, journalists are out there doing the core job for the country. You understand? So if the journalists are not there to dish out those information, to do the coverage and all of that, probably even the government might not have as much information as possible. Are there policies in place protecting, the journalists? And also to finalize, do you have one or two information you'd like to share as regards your role, the role you play in this space?
Okay, I would like to say that we are not in lack of policies in Nigeria. I am aware of the Freedom of Information Bill that protects journalists. But then every day we hear of journalists being arrested, for publishing a story that somebody somewhere is not comfortable with. So I think what we need is, the implementation of these policies. We already have policies that protect, journalists, but we also need to enforce them, right? We need to really enforce them, and they shouldn't just be policies on paper, right? I should feel protected when I go to the field. I shouldn't feel like if I tell the story in a certain way, I can be picked up, right? I can be arrested. My license, my accreditation can be, blocked, or the license of my organization can be withdrawn because I told a particular story. I know of a governor in this country that closed down a radio station because he wasn't comfortable with the kind of stories, they told about, especially about the issues, the challenges, the issues with, governance in the state. So I think journalists should really be allowed to do their work. They should be allowed to do their work. These policies should be enforced. They're not just, the policies in name only. Yeah, so that's very important. As for my advice to journalists who cover migration stories, I'll say safety first. Safety first. Please take your safety very seriously. Take self-preservation very seriously. Protect your sources. Protect them as much as you can. So you don't create more problems for them. Build a relationship with them first, and don't just go there to get quotes, right? Build a relationship with them, build trust. Also fact check. It's very important. We shouldn't just tell stories because we want to tell them. Fact check claims. We shouldn't allow our emotions take over. Facts, right? Then also secure storage. Learn how to encrypt your recordings and your interview notes. Learn how to secure all of that, and then also get help, medical help, psychological help if you need it. Get it and protect yourself. And like I always tell myself, no story is worth your life, but do your best, but no story is worth your life.
Okay, no story, it's worth your life, and I think I key into that. Thank you very much, Anibe Idija for Idaji, beg your pardon, Anibe Idaji. Thank you so much for the insight that you've shared with us today, and I wish you all the best in this field. And all of those key points you've highlighted, I think they are all important, and I am hopeful that everyone out there that is part of this program will be able to pick that which will work for them and make use of them. So after some other time, we would see you again. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Anibi. Thank you.
All right, have a great day. Thank you.
And you too. Yes. And so that's the conversation for today. Be reminded of this key point that have been highlighted. Safety is important, and it's very also key that you put the migrants into consideration, not just pushing out stories, not just about story, but of course it's your responsibility to ensure that they are also safe. You don't just frame and push out information like that. This is what we'll call it today on Across Borders for today. Don't forget to follow us via social media platforms at SOUQ News TV. Until next time, I will see you again. It's Christmas week, and I wish you a very happy Christmas. Have a great day. Bye.
Eko Atlantic has become Nigeria's most sought-after city for its high-end infrastructure, prestige, and well-planned city layout, as reflected in an 8-lane boulevard, about 13 inches